Hi and welcome back to the channel. We have another box, and if you can't tell, it's another Firefly. So I'm going to get to unboxing this and we can take a look at this guy. This is my first Firefly that has come in a styrofoam coffin. We missed more tape. And this is different, but well packaged, as most Fireflies are. Let's check the packaging on this one. So there's a little bit of movement, but it's pretty secure. In the box, looks like they gave us one tool. And again, the cheap Radio Shack cord. And the extremely unique feature in this guitar, it has a version of the Gibson Access set neck. If this guitar is anything at all for this price point and that feature, it is a stupid deal. So just like we do every guitar on the channel, we are going to go through every aspect of this guitar, from fit and finish to factory setup to the sounds. Okay, we have the guitar on our little bench here. We're going to go over the general fit and finish of the guitar and see if we see any manufacturing issues, scratch, dings, dents, anything that we may see that may be a factory problem or shipping damage. So I guess the first thing we should do is look over the binding. And the binding on this guitar starts with white, then goes black, then goes white, then goes black, then goes white, then goes black, and then the outer band of white. And on the other side, it's less binding. It goes white, black, then white. So you're missing 2 plies on the back. But the feel of the binding feels good. Now I'm going to look and see if there's any errors in the binding where one layer was shifted and the epoxy residue didn't get sanded out. It is done very nicely. Let's check the bottom binding for the exact same issue. And this cutoff line here This is done very well. In both cases, it's done well. And it's not, the binding doesn't come around like when they did this belly carve. It's not that they sanded here, okay? If you look at this body line right here, it's coming across that direction. But the binding cut is coming in almost at a 90-degree angle to this line. That's unique. It looks nice. There is ever so slightly some marking right here in the binding. It's very, very slight though. So on the binding, that's the only spot that I see. And it is extremely small. Right where my finger is. And I doubt that the camera picked that up. Now let's look at our pickup covers and our pick guard. Looks like our covers are setting flat and true to the body. And always check those on a Les Paul because you have the arch top. And sometimes these covers don't fit tightly to the body. There's a gap and then it gets tight and there's a gap. These are fitting very nice. And they are tapered. The front cover is more shallow than the rear. And that's due to the rake angle of the neck to the body. That looks nice. The pick guard is a multiply. It's white, black, white, black. And I'm not seeing any issues with that either. It's nicely done. And looking at the bracket, it is not setting skewed to the body. It's setting nice, square to the body of the guitar. That's nicely done as well. Since we're in that general area, this area here where the binding hits the black matte top, that is nicely done as well. Let's check the other side. You can see a slight line between the body bind and the neck bind, but I don't see any black. That's just a discolorization from where the epoxy was, but it looks tight. And I don't feel anything. I'd say that's well done, especially for this price point guitar. And the binding to the neck here feels nice. I do feel just a little bit of an edge there, but it is very slight. And on the top binding, we have positioning dots. And on our headstock, the headstock is also bound. Let's look at our headstock binding. And again, they have went with the exact same pattern they did on the back side of the guitar. It's white, black, and then the exterior white binding. And looking at the miters where it changes directions, that one's good, that one's good, that one's good. There's ever so slight a mark on this one, good and good. So that one right there. And again, I do not think the camera's going to pick that up. It is very slight. I would say that's extremely good. Our inlay on the neck feels smooth. And we're going to look, because sometimes Firefly gets that crooked. It does appear that the inlay is sitting straight and in line with the neck. So I'd say that's good as well. Our tuners are black, and they are a Grover style tuner. And as with most Fireflies, they are unbranded tuners. Our strap buttons, both black. I'd say they're medium to large. And they're setting square and flat to the body here. And that one's good as well. And they put plastic on the pick thing here. I can't tell if that's plastic or metal. When we get into the electronics portion of the guitar, we'll be able to tell more what this material is. It is following the contour of the body. There's no gap. So that's nicely done as well. The pickup fit inside the covers is nice. Now they do have this plastic. I guess we can take that off. Let's take the plastic off. And there is residue on the top of the pickups from the sticky plastic. I will try to clean that off before we get into the other part to make sure that they do clean up and look nice. But as of right now, there's residue from the plastic. But they look okay. The pick guard to the pickup covers, that cut line is also fits very well. Our hardware looks like a black mat, and it is secure. It's not wiggly. And this is a string through the rear bridge. And looks like the intonation adjustment screw is in this direction. And this looks like the one that has the small clip that's mounted in a groove, like a C-clip that goes over it so the screw can turn for the adjuster. That's nice. Let's check our switch. And the switch has a little jiggle to it. I don't know if you can see that. But it has a nice feel. It's not horrible. And going down, it does pop to the center position pretty easily. In the up direction from the lower position to center, it's got a little bit better feel. But from the top position, which would be your neck position, to both pickups, it trips to the center position pretty easily. The actual finish on the guitar, that's kind of hard to explain. It is a matte finish, but it almost feels like there's a slight texture to the finish of the guitar. I've done some finishing, and this finish almost feels like the paint is drying as it's going through the air. Sometimes if you increase your air pressure and limit the amount of paint that's going into the nozzle, you can get this kind of real fine, like texture feel, because the paint will start to dry during its atomization process out of the gun, and when it hits the guitar it gives it that feel. That's a complete guess on what they're doing, but that kind of reminds me of that technique, that they've increased or decreased the amount of paint on the HBLV gun, or high volume low pressure gun, to give it that texture. It is not a smooth texture. It does have a grit to it. Our neck to body joint here is really nice. I don't see any cracks or seams in the joinery. And I'm not seeing an excessive buildup of poly in this corner from them spraying the guitar. The back of the neck has less of the grit feel. It is still present, but it's not as bad. I can feel starting right here where it starts to get a little grittier into the back of the guitar. It's nicely done. They also have a volute and a heel joint on the neck. I think I've said before, I'm starting to like that. It gives your thumb a spot when you're going back to stop at. I never used to like those, but they're growing on me. Our nut, the top is extremely nice, super smooth to the binding. The bottom, it is flush. And I'm being super picky here. I can feel it. I close my eyes, I can feel the transition. But it is flush. It's just ever so slight. The top, I couldn't tell you where the nut starts and where it ends. The top is perfect. And I have guitars that cost up to $1,700, and the nut feels the same or worse than this bottom joint. It's done very nicely. And then we have the Elite badge for our truss rod cover. As far as our covers, this one is not deflecting, and it is inset to the body just a little bit. I'm going to say 1.5 millimeters, but it feels consistent all the way around. So that one's nicely done. Our bigger one, again, no deflection. So the screws are okay. Now this one, it is inset just a little bit there. At the screw, it goes to about 1.5 millimeters. Here, about a millimeter. Flush, 1.5 millimeters, and flush. And it does have a little movement. It's not much, but there is a little bit there. But I'm not seeing a single finish flaw other than the two spots that I pointed out in the binding. And I'm going to be honest with you, I would say you're going to find those small flaws in any guitar under $3 grand. I've seen some Gibson custom shops that are atrocious on that issue in this multi-layer binding. So if Gibson can't get it right at $3,000, I'd say that this is a winner at $200 with only little teeny weeny spots like that. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to check the factory setup on this guitar. Okay, I have the guitar up on my little bench here, and we're going to go over the factory setup. We're going to check the neck relief, the string action height, and we're also going to check the frets to see how well they were leveled. I guess the first thing we should do is check the relief in the neck. And Gibsons are usually 24.75. So let's see what this one is. So they did stick with a standard 24.75 scale length. And this guitar does have a little bit of relief. And we're going to say that it's a little under a millimeter. I'm going to say it's like 1.7, 1.8 millimeters of relief. Let's check the factory action height as they sent it from Firefly. I'm going to make sure that I keep my fingers out of the way. I have a bad habit of manipulating the strings. So on the 12th, our low E is set at 0.070 on the 12th on our low E. And our high E is set at 0.060, which is a very standard action height. Okay, I have my fret rocker. We're going to start at the top, and I'm going to go into squirrel mode, and I'll come out of squirrel mode if I find a bad fret. And being open and honest, right there, ever so slight. And a little more right there. So this fret right here, in this location and this location, is just a fraction high. And right there, again, ever so slightly. Just a very, very little. But it is there. And right there, again, it is very slight, but it is there. Okay, looks like we have 3 spots, and all 3 spots are very, very, very little. Definitely not going to affect playability. Even, it's so slight, even if you slam the action on this guitar, I doubt very seriously that those 3 spots would cause an issue. It's ever so slight. I'm pointing it out because it is there on the guitar. So I guess at this point, we're going to flip the guitar over and look at the electronics inside. Okay, I have the guitar flipped over. So we're going to open up the electronics cavity and check out the electronics. And this one's going to be tough to get out. Okay. They are using full-size pots. And looking at the pickups, I do see right here a white wire and a green wire. So these are coming in and they're bonded together right here. And they've done the same with the other pickup as well. So this guitar you could do coil taps on. The pickups are already wired for it. And looking at the solder joints, this one here is superb. It's got a nice puddle. This one's very nice as well. This one is so-so. I'm sure it would never cause a problem, but there's not quite the sheen on that, so it was a little cool. All the grounds and everything look good. Only thing I'm seeing right here is there are a few stray wires from this joint kind of sticking out right there. And it shouldn't be a problem as long as all your shielding is intact on the wires. But there is a little fray of wire right there that did not get bonded to the pot properly on this connection right here. Everything else looks good. Let's take the jack out. And we'll see what the jack looks like. And there's our jack. And this is the same jack that Firefly has been using. It's a pretty decent jack. It's got quite a bit of pressure right here. And this plate is definitely a resin-based plastic. And the connections look okay. This one's really good back here. And this one's good as well. It just doesn't have a very good sheen to it. But it's definitely a good bond. So I'd say that's okay. Alright, I'm going to go into squirrel mode and reattach all these covers. And there's also no shielding on the back of the cover and no shielding in this cavity. No shielding paint or shielding tape. Okay, I'm going to move my camera and we're going to check out our other electronics cavity. Okay, here's our other electronics cavity. And this one's for our three-way switch. And in here, looks like good connections. Yeah, I don't see any issues there. And there does seem to be a little movement in the switch. I don't know if you can see that. So it's not tight. Okay, I have the guitar hooked up to our tuner, and we're going to check our intonation and our first fretted note. So let's check our low E string. Low E on the 12th. That looks a little high on the intonation. Low E first fretted note. Open E first fretted note. That's not horrible for stock on the low E. There's our A. A on the 12th. That one's pretty good. Let's try our A first fretted note. Open. Tune that just a little bit. First fretted note. That's pretty close. There's our D. D on the 12th. It's a little high. Open. 12th. First fretted note. That one's really good. Open. 12th. Or first fretted note. There's our G. Twelfth. Open. That's pretty close as well. Let's try our first fretted note. And that one's a little sharp. Open. First fretted note. Let's check our B. B on the 12th. That's just a fraction high. Let's try our first fretted note on the B. That's pretty good as well. Open. First fretted note. Let's do our high E. High E on the 12th. just a little high. First fretted note on the high E. And that one's pretty good as well. So all in all, not too bad for a stock guitar. Okay, now I have the guitar plugged into our multimeter, and in the bridge position we are reading 14.98. Make sure all our knobs are all the way up. Both pickups are reading 5.43. And our neck position is reading 8.53. Okay, something kind of interesting. This is my 14 radius gauge. We put that down. It's tight in the center. There's just a little bit of a gap on either end. We set that right there. This is my 12. And it's doing the exact opposite. It's tight on the ends and there's a little teeny weeny crack in the center. So I'm going to say it's a 13-inch radius. Because if I take this 12 and I move it up here to the 12th, it's doing the exact same thing. There's just a little tiny gap in the center. And then if we move it all the way up, again, there's just a little teeny weeny crack dead center. But if we take our 14, again, it's tight in the center and just a little bit of a crack on its ends. So I'm going to say that this is a 13-inch radius neck, at least at the fingerboard. Okay, now that we've really went through the instrument, we've had the opportunity to use the tuning keys and turn the knobs and play with the switches. Let's kind of go over the feel of the tuning pegs. These tuning pegs are okay. They're semi-smooth. There's just something about them that I don't really care for. They do work and they're not rough feeling. They just don't have a good feel to them. The control pots I like. They do feel smooth, but in prior videos that I've done on Fireflies, I hear comments that it requires too much force to turn the knob. If you're one of those players that want to reach down with your pinky and turn these pots, you're going to have a hard time. These are not low friction pots. It does require a little effort to turn them. When we plug the guitar into the amplifier, we'll see how linear the pots are. We'll see a lot of your cheaper pots, there's very little change until the very end, then they drop off. So we'll check that. And I do believe it's time to plug this thing into the amplifier and actually hear what it sounds like. Okay, I have the guitar plugged into my rack mount amplifier. We are in the bridge position and we are on the clean channel. Both pickups center position. position. Let's go back to our bridge position. Center position. Neck position. Okay, I've added a little crunch to the amplifier. We're going to start out in our bridge position. Center position. Neck position. Okay, we're just going to do some noodling around on the crunchy. Center position. Neck position. Okay, I've switched my amp over to the dirty channel. Center position. Neck position. Okay, now that we've had the opportunity to play with the tuning keys, play with the volume pots, play with the switch, and actually play the instrument itself, what are my final thoughts on it? The tuning pegs are okay. They're not really smooth and they're not gritty. I'm just going to say that they're okay. They function. I think they do slip a little bit. The next are the pots. These pots I like. They have a nice smooth feel to them, but they're also firm. But in the past, I've had comments on some other Firefly videos saying that I like the pots, and people are like, well, they can't roll the volume down with their pinky. If you're one of the players that are reaching down and you're rolling the volume with your pinky, these probably are not going to be the pots for you. It does take a little pressure to turn them. So using your pinky to roll down and up the volume and do volume swells like that, it's going to be a little harder to do. This switch, I didn't have a problem with it, but it is a little flimsy. Next, the sound of the guitar. I actually like the sound of the guitar, clean, and I actually like the sounds that it makes on the crunchy channel. It has a nice little bite to it. Where it starts to fall apart is on the high gain channel. These pickups start to get a little muddy sounding on high gain, and that might contribute to some of the bite that it has on clean and crunch. It just doesn't seem to really like a high gain setting. They do get a little muddy. You lose articulation, you lose the note clarity with high gain. As far as playability with this access, you can get way up and it's easy to get to the high notes. There's no issues there. The neck feels great. It really does play well. I think what this guitar lacks is a good electronics package and some tuning keys. We got to keep something in mind. The cheapest Epiphone and Gibson you can get with this joint is $1,300. This guitar is coming in at $200. So you can easily upgrade the electronics pack and put nice tuners on it for another $200. Have $400 in the guitar and still be 1/3 the cost of the Epiphone version. The Gibson version of this starts at about $4,000. So we need to keep that in mind. The overall fit and finish on the guitar is extremely good. The binding work, everything on the guitar is very nice. I think it just needs good electronics. I think if you're wanting to play hard rock with it or distorted music, you're going to find that these pickups get muddy pretty quick. If you're playing clean stuff and crunchy stuff, you might actually like the tone that comes out of these. Anyway, those are my final thoughts on it. And if you like content like this, please hit the like button. And if you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button. When I see the subscription count go up, it makes me feel good. It makes me know that I'm doing the content that everyone wants to see. Anyway, thank you for clicking on the video. That's a beautiful guitar. It's like Mama's guitar.
Mm-hmm. But a little bit ugly.
Yeah, Mama's guitar is probably a little prettier. Mm-hmm. I've been waiting for a pretty color, but they're not going to make them in pretty colors.